Okay, our next unit, our next topic, as promised, is divide by one-digit numbers with area models. Now, this should be a little bit simpler than the examples that I gave in the video I just did. Let's take a look. It says Catherine split up the area of a rectangle to help solve her division equation 7,987 divided by 7 equals. She splits the rectangle into parts that are easy to divide by 7. Now, I'm actually not a big fan of this particular lesson because the question is how. How did she split this number into chunks that are easily divisible by 7? I've been teaching for over 20 years, and I would have a hard time knowing exactly how to split this up so that it's evenly divisible by 7. They don't really give any way to know that in this particular problem. We are, I suppose, just supposed to assume that she came up with it off the top of her head and we're just checking her work, I suppose. Every now and again, Khan Academy is a little bit frustrating. But however she does it, she splits the rectangle into parts that are easy to divide by 7. And we want to figure out what each of these lengths is. So for example, 7,000 is the area, 7 is the width. So the length should be 1,000. That would be 7,000 divided by 7, 1,000. That's all this is. That's all this is all the way down. We're just taking the area and figuring out, and dividing it by 7 in this case, right? Because 7 units is the width of all of these. And once we get there, we add them all up in the end, I imagine. So 700 divided by 7, well, that's 100. 280 divided by 7, well, I know that 28 divided by 7 is 4. So 280 divided by 7 is going to be 40. D, 7 square units, well, that's easy. 7 divided by 7 is 1. Oop, that's not what I meant to do at all. There we go. So now it wants to know H, the grand total. And as you can see, because it has been nicely and neatly split up into very evenly divisible chunks, we can now add this up without too much difficulty to get 1,141 units. So 7,987 divided by 7 is 1,141. Again, I don't know how exactly one goes about breaking this up into nice, neat, evenly divisible chunks, but hopefully the idea is still coming through. It's a pattern we're looking at here, rather than really focusing on that particular detail of how did she do the thing. Oops, every now and again I do that. I accidentally hit the wrong thing. Okay, up next, Irina split up the area of a rectangle to help her solve the division equation 420 divided by 2 equals. She splits the rectangle into parts that are easy to divide by 2. See, this at least I can understand, right? Divisible by 2, she's just taking the 400 and the 20, breaking them apart, and dividing each piece by 2. That makes a lot more sense to me. This is a much more reasonable example than the last one was. So A is going to be 200. Because 200 times 2 is 400. B is going to be 10, because 10 times 2 is 20. So the whole height is 210. So 420 divided by 2 is 210. Maybe you could have done this one in your head without having to resort to the area model, but honestly, I kind of like using the area model on very simple problems first, so that you can get a feel for how it works, so that when you actually need to use it later for more complicated problems, you've got plenty of practice. All right, up next. Kazu split up the area of a rectangle to help him solve the division equation 2,439 divided by 4. He splits the rectangle into parts that are easy to divide by 4 and a remainder. We do have these last 3 square units, which won't fit, it looks like. So let's see here. A, well, 24 divided by 4 is 6, right? Either we have our times tables memorized by this point, or we can do mental mental arithmetic to try to pull that answer without having to memorize the times tables. Either way works for me. I know that 6 times 4 is 24, so A must be 600 units. B, 36 divided by 4 is, I want to say, 9? 9. Took me a second there. 36 divided by 4 is 9, not 90 this time, right? That's 36 square units, not 360. So it is only 9. And then that makes the total height there 609. With a remainder of 3 square units left over. So 2,439 divided by 4 is 609, remainder 3. One more. Hannah split up the area of a rectangle to help her solve the division equation 348 divided by 5. She split the rectangle into parts that are easy to divide by 5, blah, blah, blah. So once again, 300 divided by 5, well, that gives me 60. Remember, when dividing by 5, the trick that I use is I do 300 divided by 10, which I know is 30, and then I double that to get me 60. That's kind of my method. I know I've mentioned it before, but my method for dividing by 5 is usually to divide by 10 and then double whatever the result is. Just a handy little tip. So I know that A is 60 square units. B is 45 divided by 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. That would be 9. Don't be afraid to use those fingers. That's what they're for. Man, this is really just spitting out. Last time we had a 420 and a 609. Now it's going to give me 69 units. It's like Khan Academy is mocking me. 69, remainder 3 is, I believe, correct. Nice. Okay. That's divide by one-digit numbers with area models. Let's move on.